see.
I don't think so. Nope.
Yeah, man. Last second, always.
Not the same channel?
Same channel, but I think it's a different link now.
Good to do a recap.
Oh, yeah, I hear the sound. It actually... It was good initially, and then somehow it dropped out. Like when we first, I'm just watching the video back. When we first started it before, it was fine, and then the sound started degrading.
All right. Well, we're live now on YouTube. I don't know in terms of embedding the new link. I'm trying to get it.
Sorry.
That's fine. All right, here we go. We're back again here. Yeah. It now looks like the video is all there you go. I don't know. We'll find out. Let me.
The video. What?
Yeah,
oh, the video.
I mean, guy, in terms of like a polished, first class thing, not going to happen with us. All right. We're live. I'm gonna see. Let me try to give the link into the Slack channel, and that way maybe people can share it around. Everyone said it started good, and then at 2:17 the audio went to shit. All right, so let's see now. All right, I'm getting told video sound is good, audio is good. Okay, so let's continue. Let's pick up where we left. Like, we apologize for that. I know a lot of people said it was good until like the 2-minute, 15-second mark. We basically we're just summarizing the progress that Mderasse has made, and then Doug, you want to repeat what you were saying in terms of what you noticed in terms of his code and his. Hello?
Kevin, can you hear me?
You can't hear me now.
Yeah,
I can't hear you.
Unbelievable. Okay.
And Mderasse is frozen for some reason.
What?
I'm frozen?
Let me try. I'm going to try leaving the room.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm frozen on your side, or it's fine?
And you heard me too, right?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. Doug wasn't hearing me. Yeah, this is fun. Live, live broadcasting with.
Just live.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Doug, hold on though. They got 2 of your microphones. All right. Can you hear me
now?
We're good?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, that was just my boo-boo because I was listening to our video to see when the sound went off, and I forgot that I had muted my audio. And then you started talking, and I didn't hear you.
I was about to give up. I'm like, man, okay.
That was all. Sorry.
Yeah, so what I was saying is if you can maybe just recap what you were saying in terms of the progress that you've seen from Mderasse.
Oh, yeah. So, so Mderasse has been making the 0.16 branch buildable, much more easily buildable on all of these different operating systems, and mostly Linux. And I think you're going to move on to, or you started moving on to Mac and Windows as well, I think, right?
I'm still concentrating on Linux right now, but I'm trying to make the auto build system with Travis for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, so it should be a lot more automated to do the builds, which would be great because traditionally, in this project, building was always one of the biggest pains in the butt because the way we used to build the wallets is that I used to do it, which isn't very elegant. Is have a virtual machine of different versions of the operating system that you need to build on, and then compile all the dependencies necessary for the different operating systems in each one, and then have the operating system backdated sufficiently such that it'll be backwards compatible to work on a newer operating system, but not forwards compatible in the inverse scenario, using a new operating system to build it, and then the virtual machines would break and were buggy, and the Mac one you actually can't. They really don't want you to be able to do it, a virtual system. So I used to use my Mac, but my Mac is on newer operating systems. Then I had a virtual machine on my Mac of an older Mac version to be able to build the wallet that works on a various range of operating systems for the Mac, because everyone has a different, operating system, especially in Mac because they update very often. So there's all kinds of versions. Anyway, it's always like a pain. It sounds like a simple task, but it's really a huge pain. And then there's other issues potentially. If you have in the user interface, if Qt is supposed to be operating system independent, but if you have a font that another operating system doesn't have or isn't compatible with, we had that issue before, then you can get a seg fault on the user interface just because you don't have a font installed, and you won't know until you dig deep into it. So it can be really a pain. But this kind of system that Mderasse is setting up means that a lot of people could potentially build wallets, which would be ideal, because then we could have people build wallets much more easily on all these different operating systems, so that when we were about to do a release, we already have a lot of testing. I used to basically build a Mac operating system, build a Mac wallet on one version of Mac that was older, and then kind of hand it out to the community and see how it runs. And then if there's a problem, trying to address it version by version. If there's different problems that arise, different libraries that are not included or linked or whatever the case may be. And then likewise for Windows. And then Linux, we didn't really ever support multiple flavors of Linux very effectively. So this is a big improvement to that as well, because you can compile on Linux yourself, and that's pretty much the way it goes. But still, there's a lot of dependencies that you need to get right. So this is really good for us going forward and releasing the new version of the wallet in a much more streamlined, automated, and testable way.
And one of the things I was saying prior to the cutoff was the fact that one of the challenges in terms of social media is that we have different, like I may log into Twitter and I'm on one time zone in one area, and then maybe Will log into Twitter and he's in a different time zone in a different area, and Twitter will go and suspect like suspicious activity, and then the password needs to be changed. And so we're having, it's not as simple to run a decentralized organization and have like 8 different social media accounts that need to be managed by. So it's very difficult. And one thing that Mderasse is also trying to solve is how can we try to integrate that, and so that we have a more workable solution on that end. And I saw a comment earlier too about having a social media manager or a community manager, and I'm all for that. So I think it was Daniel who mentioned maybe being involved, and I like 100%. I mean, if you don't you don't need to be, quote, an expert at it, but if you believe in the project and you want to help get some of the messaging out, yeah, by all means. I mean, we need someone that can be, a little bit more hands-on that end of things, I believe.
Mhm.
So if you think you can do that, raise your hand and we'll get you we'll get you the credentials to log in and what I would ideally would like to see, to be quite honest, because it's decentralized and I want to keep it that way. It'd be really cool if you had a committee like we talked about last time with 5 or 6 people, and any of them can post something, but before it's actually published, it needs to be validated by at least one other person.
Mhm.
And that way, if somebody goes rogue and gets pissed off or whatever, or I mean, even like look at what Elon Musk did the other day. He mentions, oh, Tesla's stock price is too high, and then within like the hour, it drops 10%.
Right.
You wouldn't want someone that's like, you know what, I want to buy more Vericoin, and I'm going to say something bad, see the price drop down, and go, oh boy, oh, we're just kidding.
Yeah.
So, but that way you have some sort of like control to some level, where anyone in the committee could commit a post, but someone has to validate it and kind of approve it. I don't know if that's possible to do or not, but I'd like to see something like that, ideally. I don't know. If anyone has ideas, definitely
Yeah,
share them with us.
I think I know that. So when the project first launched, um, me and Pat, I think, can't remember at the time. I was definitely doing, the vast majority of what I was doing when we launched was development, but I was also doing a bunch of community management stuff, as was Pat. And so we were. I mean, when you first launch a project, it was me and Pat. I mean, when it first launched, that's all there was. And we were doing everything. We were splitting everything. So we were both doing a lot of things at one time, and it was really tough to do. But then we got there was one of the early miners of VeriCoin when it was in a mining phase. He was pretty into the project, and he became the first community manager. Only a few people in the community will probably remember him. I forget what his scream name was, but it was something monkey. And but he did some nice like writing about the project, and he was the first community manager. Long story short is community manager has had the most burn, like like what is it called? Like the burn rate for community manager position is the worst. I mean, people come in and out of doing different tasks on the project, and then the community manager ends up having to do a lot of stuff, and then eventually, essentially, burns out. Partly, because of the pace of development. Partly because, they're always catching the disappointment in the price and then trying to communicate it to us, and then with the goal of us developing at a more efficient pace or something. And there's a lot of, long story short is, I think if we do have another formal community manager type role, I think we do need to figure out a way where it's not too much of a burden for them, and or it's distributed across some number of people. Like for instance, if one person handles one element of community management, like one person does the Slack, one person does the Telegram, or one. This is oversimplified, but if there's some way also for us to divvy up the tasks, then I like what Kevin's saying about having like review of official messages. I think like from the Twitter account is basically
That's exactly just from those official channels. Making sure that if 5 different people have access, because the more people that you give access to those channels, the higher probability that someone's going to say something that we're all going to be like, oh no, like whether it's an overpromise, or so I think you want to have some form of validation before it's actually published, that without being restrictive, because with social media you want to be quick. You don't want to have a committee to go, oh, should we publish this? But so I'm not saying to have a voting majority rules, but just one person at least has to say, "Yep, that's good. Publish it."
Yeah.
And if it's iffy, then maybe it goes to the next person. But it's just I'd like to see that. I don't know if it's possible. I think I read somewhere somebody's working on something like that where I remember somebody in the community sent me the link or I looked it up on my own, but somebody is working on a specialized aspect of managing social media with decentralized organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is something out there. I just don't know if it's beta or if it's actually something that is developed yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see the need for that.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then
Roku3 has stepped up in large part after VeriMad left to do a bunch of community management. So thanks to him for
yes,
taking that on. It's a largely thankless task, I will say.
yeah, you have to have thick skin as well
You
because
do, yeah. And
you're basically on
people,
the front line of all the
yeah. Like our community is nice, but like rando people that come in, they'll say like anything, and sometimes it's, you're working all day to try and like, motivate and communicate to people, and then somebody comes in and says like this is a scam or something, and then you got to beat that back or ignore it or whatever.
I remember I think I live in Romania and a Verimad had gone on a vacation
Yeah.
and it was like the price of the coin went up, and someone was claiming like we were pumping the price to pay for our vacation. I'm thinking, I'm not on vacation, man. I'm like living in like some little apartment in Romania with no air conditioner in the middle of summer. And I'm reading that message. I'm like, screw you, dude. Like,
Yeah.
not a vacation here.
Yeah, and
So
the other thing is like another point that like kind of insider like information, not insider information, but like the inner story of the community management stuff is like, for instance, like in 2016 the community was like completely dead because it was the previous bear market, and we had lots a smaller community than we have now in a bear market. And Very Mad had been a member of the community for a while, and he approached me, and he was like what are you working on? And I told him all the things that I was designing and or coding at the time, and it was and he was like, dude, this is amazing. We need to get this out to everyone. And I was like, all right, yeah. I mean, you can tell people about it and stuff. And I was like not communicating hardly at all because there wasn't really many people in the chat. And then he turned it into the roadmap, the binary chain roadmap. And it wasn't, it was what I told him. And then he turned it into like a formal roadmap. But there was like always a little disconnect. Like, this is what I'm designing. This is what I'm working on in the pace that I can. And then once it became a roadmap, it didn't really change. The plan didn't change, but the community's perception of the plan and the rollout and the timing and all these things came into play that I wasn't necessarily prepared to answer correctly or anticipate correctly,
right,
or estimate timelines for. So that's the other challenge, as I would say. So on the one hand, VeriMad really enlivened the community by communicating out, what the plans were at that time, but also that process ended up building expectations that we couldn't necessarily meet, and self-imposed deadlines that we missed, and so on and so forth. So the community manager position is really tricky in a number of ways, I would say.
Okay. Well, and again, I think the best thing to do is not to have it fall on one person.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be, and I kind of see that's the way it is right now. I feel like there's 3 or 4 people that, I mean, Will is I would say, you know, takes a chunk of it. And even you, Mderasse, lately, you've been, very active in the community, also answering questions and updating things. So I don't like the idea of just one person being the community manager. I think it's the community itself, and then there's certain people that are maybe a little bit more actively involved and active in answering questions. So I'd love that. I'd love to see it continue in that manner versus having like one dedicated person. But there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of different channels. I've said it from day one. I'm not going to be, you know, I I'm already pinged to death between my business with Skype, WhatsApp, Google Hangouts, text messages, you name it. The last thing I need now is Telegram, Discord, and 10 other websites to check. I'm always going to do what I can, and I think that's an important thing to say as well. Somebody, um, I have a hard time remembering his name, but somebody made a comment today about something that they're working on, and it sounds really cool. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. If you can do that, like make the video and then share it when it's done. And then he replied like, well, I've got a busy life and a baby, and I don't know when it might be. And I said, look, I like do it when you can. And like don't put that pressure on yourself to say, okay, I'm going to have it done by X and X date, because just do it when you can. And then when you get it done, then just make sure that you share it so that, again, the official channel can promote it. Because I think that's a big thing. I think I mentioned this last time, I believe. A lot of people want to maybe publish things and talk about the project, but in their mind, they're thinking, well, I only have so many followers on Twitter. No one's going to see it. What's the point of me posting something on Facebook or wherever if no one's going to see it? If you're posting those things, put it into the community, let the community amplify it, and then the actual official channels on Twitter can point to those things and say, look, this is what's going on. There's another thing I wanted to bring up too. Well, before I go off on that, I want to talk about the ARM64 aspect. And I know it was brought up, but I don't think we spent enough time discussing what that actually entails and what's involved and what exactly was accomplished or what we're working to on that end. I mean, ARM64 is essentially, that would mean if I want to mine on my Chromebook, I could even.
Mderasse, you wanna answer that? You're probably up on it more than I am.
Mm-hmm. And that would be both. That would be VeriCoin and Verium, or just VeriCoin?
Yeah, I mean, basically, besides the some of the parameters, obviously some of the protocol, and some of the strings that say Vericoin instead of Verium. All the work, almost all the work, 99% of the work that Mderasse, for instance, is doing right now is going to go right into Vericoin. So
Okay.
that's why I haven't really been working on these in parallel, because it's actually a lot more efficient to just take the nearly completed Verium build requirements and all the things that Mderasse has been working on and Synditech was working on and I was working on, and then just move it into Vericoin and boom,
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be like if you want to duplicate a web, like for me, a web page, I'm going to get it exactly the way I want, then duplicate it versus
Exactly.
going back and forth and restyling it 20 times, two different places.
Exactly.
Okay. So, because this is something that I know personally, I've had people say they can't wait until they can just buy like a Raspberry Pi. That's their dedicated VeriCoin wallet, essentially. So that
I can comment on that. So, I mean, the ARM64 is going to be good for VeriCoin as well, because VeriCoin uses the same hashing algorithm as Verium, just with a different memory parameter and like a different memory requirement, and the data set is smaller. And the other thing that's going to be good about 0.16 is the older Bitcoin code base, which VeriCoin currently is based off of, and the old Verium is based off of. It's like it stems. There's a long, winding path of GitHub repos that it comes through, but I think it stems originally from the 0.8 version of Bitcoin, and then it was partially upgraded in PureCoin, and which is like an ancestor to our POS, and then Verium is related to VeriCoin code fork wise. Long story short is the old version of Bitcoin, which handles the database of the blockchain, which didn't really have to change. The database structure hasn't really changed up until, except for one or two things over the years. But how that data is handled has been optimized. So, for instance, it used to be that when the blockchain was small, you just put the entire blockchain into RAM. And that's what's happening in VeriCoin right now. The entire blockchain is in RAM. So it requires gigs of memory to run VeriCoin, which is really not necessary. It means that you have to read and write from the disk more, but it's not really a big problem. It's better than consuming too much RAM. So VeriCoin right now doesn't run on ARM, partly because it just consumes too much memory, and a lot of the single board computers just don't have much memory in them. Although the newer ones probably do have enough memory now. But long story short is ARM64 compatibility moved into VeriCoin is going to be good, because it'll use better software, more suited for the hardware in Raspberry Pis. And then the new 0.16 plus version of VeriCoin will only use 350 megabytes of RAM. So that'll just way under the requirement, or the minimum requirement. Well, not the requirement, the minimum amount of RAM that these single board computers have these days. So we should. Long story short is unnecessarily long answer to this question. Long story short is when we're done with 0.16. It should run on a Raspberry Pi, both VeriCoin and Verium, efficiently.
Okay, good. And then this brings me to something else, and then I'll get into the question Will had. And by the way, this is a little. People are saying on Twitter we should be just publishing. Larson was saying just anything. It doesn't always have to be project related. It could be just a quote from the past, or he want like even what I eat for dinner. Trust me, you don't want to. I don't. There's nothing noteworthy about what I eat for dinner. As a single bachelor, I'm a very minimalist for the most part. So if you want to hear about a frozen pizza, whatever, that I heated up, that's cool. If I make something special, I'll post that, but I don't think that will ever be the case, and it will still be VeriCoin related somehow. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to bring up, and this kind of goes to the Raspberry Pi, and Mderasse might be able to answer. If not, this can be a topic for another day. QLE Mac. I don't know if you've communicated with him, Mderasse, but he is wanting to build a kind of out of the box Verium mining, like you would buy a Raspberry Pi, basically almost plug and play. Not so much a Raspberry Pi, but a single board computer of some sort that would be very just out of the box, almost ready. And so this is something that he's working on. And again, if you can comment on it, great. If not, we can maybe have him on another show when he's closer to having that ready. Okay. YouTube? I don't know, man, because I hear you fine. Okay.
I heard him fine too. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Hold on. Now we might see, I have to add you again. And now we might have two mics.
Well, I can comment on that a little bit while he's coming back. So there isn't any fundamental technical reason why you can't do plug and play single board computer Verium miners or VeriCoin stakers. There's no fundamental technical reason why that wouldn't be possible on the new for any single board computer on the new core version of either wallet. Now, to make it plug and play requires work because actually Mderasse's auto building systems that he's setting up for all the different operating systems is actually going to make this a lot easier because you could kind of, in an automated way compile the wallet ideally by the user or before delivery. You do have to figure out a way to generate a private key by the user generates a private key as opposed to the person who's building the device. But long story short is what Mderasse is working on is going to make it easier to build these sort of plug and play single board computers. And there's no technical fundamental reason why it can't be done. The harder part is getting everything streamlined for the user so that they can, for instance, you need to install the wallet, but on this board that someone's going to plug into a computer or whatever, or a wall, but you don't want to be the one generating a private key. You want them to be the one generating the private key locally when they get the device. So those kinds of things would need to be, maybe you have a script that does the compilation. Actually, the wallet could be compiled, but the script runs the wallet for the first time, and the user runs that script. Or as soon as the device is plugged in, the script automatically runs, and then the wallet is kicked on, and then a private key is generated at that time point. However, it would be good to have a system where the user can know that this private key was not generated by someone else. So if you plug in a device and there's a private key on it, you don't know if it just arrived or it was already there.
Yeah.
So there's like these types of things have to be figured out and worked out and scripted or whatever, and then made clear how it's. But other than the actual ease of plugging in and everything going, setting that up in a secure way, there's no fundamental limitation that would prevent it.
Okay. Again, that's something I think we can have another discussion as we get closer to that point. And I like the fact that there's different people in the community that are working on different aspects right now. Mm-hmm. And again, that's not just in the technical development. We're seeing more people post things as well, which is great. Mm-hmm. So I guess we're ended now. We're kind of getting close to total an hour between the first segment and the second.
Oh, segment. Do you want to do the questions or?
Yeah, I think we only had one question from, unless some were added to the thread. So Will wanted to know a little bit, his question, he wanted you to maybe elaborate on the mining shares exactly and what that entails. And
yeah,
I know that's something that's going to be added to the white paper. So he's just hoping you can expand on that.
Okay.
And then I'll just throw the follow-up too, which was We know that the Bitcoin halving is coming up.
Yeah.
What's the situation with Verium's inflation decrease?
Okay.
So those are the two questions that I see. And as you're answering those, I'll go through the Slack channel and YouTube to see if there's any other questions that have come in.
Yeah. So I think it was either 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2018. Fighting and I, in particular, others too, HG4R. I can't remember all the people who were working on it at the time. But anyway, we were all trying to get the P2 pool for Verium working. And the P2 pool is, and we have actually, we completed a coded version of the P2 pool for Verium. And the P2 pool is a decentralized way to manage mining rewards such that a single block can be split in a decentralized way to multiple miners while they're sharing their hash power. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the power of a pool to get a block more frequently, but you don't have a server running that someone's in control of, which distributes the coins. So that's the goal of a P2 pool, a decentralized pool for mining. We built a P2 pool for Verium. It took a long time. We did it, completed it, boom, done. We run it, and it's slow as hell, and it can't even take shares, mining shares, in a fast enough clip for all the miners that would want to use it, such that it's unusable for us, basically. And the reason it's unusable and slow is because we have a very computationally expensive CPU, computationally expensive hashing algorithm, which by design, but it makes it such that the P2 pool code base, which is in Python, just can't handle it. It's Python is a translated, not a compiled language. We built off of what was available for P2 pool, and it was in Python, and it's not good for Verium. It doesn't work well enough. So then the question was, could we build our own P2 pool in C++? Yeah, we could. It would take even longer. And then the other thing that came up out of it was we're building a second blockchain to manage mining shares. Why? We have a blockchain. We're not in the situation Bitcoin is in where you can't touch the chain. No one can do anything with the chain. Everything has to be done separate from the chain. We can integrate the mining shares into the chain if the miners use it, if they do it. So then it was like, all right, well, why would we need to build the network effect on a new network of miners that handles a decentralized mining reward distribution if we already have a P2P network of miners on the main chain? So then the mining shares application became the new design strategy, which is basically on the binary chain, which has a temporary database that handles data that needs to be processed prior to depositing data onto the chain. So in this temporary database shared by all the nodes in the Verium network, we can essentially put a bunch of hashing data, and then that hashing data can be there can be hashes that are assigned to keys that are used to define the distribution of rewards across miners in a decentralized way via the Verium blockchain and a temporary database that's rolling with some supplementary data necessary to handle the system. So long story short is it's our own custom P2 pool integrated into our chain. And the beauty of this is there's a couple awesome things about it. There's no mining fee. Like if you go to a pool, there's a pool fee. There's no pool fee. There's no fee to withdraw your coins because the coins get directly deposited into your address upon block finding. So basically the protocol doesn't require a fee to split a block across multiple addresses. But if coins are end up in a pool address, then the protocol charges a fee to move those coins out of the pool address into your address. So it avoids the pool withdrawal fee, and it needs no pool fee for maintenance because it's relying on the P2P network built into the Verium chain anyway. So there's no additional infrastructure essentially. So and you can get frequent rewards on a small single board computing device. Say on a single board computer, we estimated that you could get at least a reward a day in a decentralized way, directly from a block that's split with you and many others. Because when we designed the CPU mining algorithm, we successfully achieved that, but we didn't anticipate the psychological impact of waiting for rewards on individual devices, and how hard it is to wait for a solo mining reward as a solo miner when you have not a powerful server. At this point, it's a powerful server room you would need to get very frequent rewards, or at the very least, a very powerful server. So this basically solves the problem of not only can you use a consumer device, but you can psychologically be satisfied by frequent rewards daily. So if you're new to it, you don't think you're just burning energy unnecessarily because you never get any rewards. It's like you're playing the lottery and you never win. What's the point? You will win a reward every day with this, and it's in a decentralized way. No one controls the coins. There's no fees and all that. So this is good. Once the auxiliary mining is set up, and we have the temporary database set up, that's what I want to be the first application that we launch.
Okay. And so I guess the couple other little questions have come in. The one that probably one person asked if you're going to ever write a book on blockchain, Doug. Another question was, so general feedback I'm getting though is people want to see more of these kind of updates on a regular basis every 2 weeks. I think so. The key thing I'm hearing is more updates on Twitter, regardless of the significance of them.
Mm-hmm.
More of these type of updates if we can do them. I think doing like we're doing every 3 weeks right now. It would be great if we can maintain this, and it doesn't have to be the same people all the time. So someone else wants to host one, that's cool too. But one good question I'm curious myself was Mderasse, like when did you discover this project? Do you remember like when you first heard about it, and what was it about the project that made you get involved? And so if you can share that, that'd be great. I'm curious on my own. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's not muted.
I can't hear him. Can you?
I could hear him. Yeah.
Okay. I thought
Jason, can you say something now again?
I think it's YouTube that just don't like me.
Yeah, your mic showing full green bars. So
So it's okay now?
He's not
Right?
muted, guys. He's not muted. I hear him fine, and his mic is showing green bars.
Okay, so now they can hear me.
I never heard
They
of
can hear you now. They can hear you now. Go ahead.
Great. So basically, as I was saying, it's a pretty hard question for me. That's why I discovered Verium and VeriCoin a really long time ago when Testbug was still there with his pool. So yeah, I think 2016, 2017, something like that. Mainly what made me came to that project was I had some hardware to try. And that had a good CPU, so I was like, what can I do with it? Let's try to do some mining. I start to search for CPU mining, and yeah, I arrived on the VeriCoin website and I saw the project. I was like, yeah, that looked pretty interesting to me. I was starting mining, and after I decided to create a pool. And lately, the reason why I start to develop more is I don't know. I don't know. Just got like, yeah, okay. Maybe I have more free time. Maybe
Yeah. I think that with this with a lot of people being in quarantine right now, it's given people, even if you're still working a full job, if you're not having to commute to the office back and forth, and even having to spend that extra time getting ready in the morning, so I think it's opened up opportunity in that you've got at least an extra hour a day at least, and and you can only, I don't think people want to waste time. That's the other thing, so for me, I had ideas. I've always wanted to do a little radio show. I've got a little radio show I started on the weekends now, Sunday mornings, and it's just something I wanted to do. And I'm like, what, screw it, I'm going to start doing it. So I think this idea of just like, and with this project, the same thing. I think I was like, what, I want to get this thing going, and I think this is the time we really push hard. I think the need for this is here. I mean, it's not evident yet, but you can see the writing on the wall. The need for decentralized currency is strong, and so yeah. All right, I think we'll end it. Just double check. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll end this one. Sorry for all the technical issues. I think this was out of our control. I think we did everything we could do this time.
I could just answer Will's question.
Keep the questions coming in, and like I said, if you are interested in getting involved on the social media side of things, or maybe being involved a little bit as a community manager, just reach out and we'll get you the access you need to do that job properly. And in the meantime, just also try to keep giving props to the people who are doing a lot of work right now. So
I think
everybody motivated.
If I could add something, sure. Feel free to if you want a Trello access to follow to create some task or stuff like that and participate to it. Feel free. Aside of that, I will keep doing the weekly update on Reddit and share it everywhere. But yeah, feel free to join, guys. I was thinking it's hard. Yes, there is stuff to learn, but you can come up to speed really fast. And there is a lot of little things to do, like as you say, community management. Okay, it's a big thing right now. But a bridge to create a blockchain explorer, stuff like that. It's a lot of little projects that we can.
Is the Trello board easy for people to access, and maybe that's something that we can maybe consider putting a link to the Trello board on the website so that people can easily access it without hunting for, because even right now, if I wanted to go to it, I don't know. So I think a lot of things about simplicity of using the website as the hub. So regardless if you're on Discord, Telegram, Reddit, wherever you like to get your information, knowing that the website is at least a source. But I'll need to know, if I'm going to update the site, I need to kind of know a lot of, what is it we want to put on the site. and what links are important. I did update the VeriCoin and Verium pages recently. I took away the exchanges that were no longer relevant. There's still probably a lot of areas to make the website better. Okay, cool. Let's end this one, and we'll try to do it again in a few weeks, maybe.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks everyone.